Welcome back into the Pigskin Cafe. My name is Hampton Sipper, and usually my good buddy Graham Haney is joining me breaking down all things college football. But we've got an OG member of the Pigskin Cafe here today, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Chase Haney has elected to come on and talk about the disappointing loss that Alabama had yesterday versus Oklahoma Sooners, 23-21, and we're going to break it all down on this episode and where the tide goes from here. But before we get into that, if you haven't already, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, leave us a like, leave us a comment, hit that notification bell, because we are so close to 400 subscribers and we need your help to get us there. And we appreciate each and every one of you listening throughout this whole football season. And we've got an exciting 2 weeks left of the regular season. We can't wait to break it all down with you here. Without further ado, Chase, let's get into this, man. This game had a lot riding on it, and it mirrored the situation and really many aspects of the game from last year when Alabama went to Norman. Playoff hopes on the line. A team that you're playing that's limited offensively but that has a great defense, and you fall short again. And I want to kick it to you and just get your overall main takeaways and frustrations with this game. And I'll sum it up this way. There's the saying that, they just constantly shot themselves in the foot. Alabama shot both feet off versus Oklahoma yesterday, and that's how I felt watching this game.
That's not a bad play on words because, man, like you said, it felt like this was very similar to last year's game. Just everything coming into this. The major difference, you would say, is that it feels like this Alabama team had figured some stuff out, had high hopes. Man, they played a gauntlet of a schedule coming into this game. It really felt like if we were going to be, or Oklahoma wasn't going to stress us or press us in a way that this team has not seen. If I had to give a headline of maybe my overall thoughts, and I don't know if this is to the point where I'm ready to write my dissertation on this, but I wonder if the SEC is moving towards this styles make fights type of round robin. And what I simply mean by that is, for some reason, we seem to not be able to show up and beat this kind of Oklahoma team that I would say the past 2 years we've been better than. And that's, I know that Sooners Nation wants to clip that, post it on their fan page and be like, hey, they don't get it. And I think you just watched that game yesterday thinking, man, this team is better than last year. We scored 3 points last year. This year, it felt like we started off slow, but we made our way back into the game. But it felt like when it was time for us to go win the game, like you said, we shot both feet off. So, and I've got a lot of thoughts. But I think that we're going to move. If you're listening to this, I think you're going to hear us basically have a lot to say about the offense. Just some, like, an exhale and what are we doing when it comes to the special teams? I remember on this podcast, Graham said, hey, in big games, there's 3 parts to a football game. There's offense, defense, and special teams. In big games, you've got to win 2 of those 3. Since he said that has proven to be true. It's not something that's crazy. I just never heard it put that simply. And here we are, defense won, offense lost, and our special teams lost. So before we really move in and analyze this, Hampton, I do want to say, and just if you're listening to this, hey, thank you for letting me kind of take a step back for a little bit, become a dad. That's been really sweet. But, man, it's been also fun, I think, to root for you guys from the sideline a little bit, that it's been fun to be someone who helped kind of start this and moderate it, and at times listen to you guys who are way smarter than I am talk about ball, talk about college football, and talk about Alabama football specifically. But it's been fun to just take a step back and be a fan of yours and really just listen to the podcast. I'm still just as supportive. I look forward to when this comes out each Sunday. So it has been fun. I'm looking forward to being a part of this one more time. So hopefully more going into the future. But Hampton, I guess the best way, if I could kind of bring you into this, like I said, we've got, again, those 3 parts of the football game we want to talk about. But I kind of want to ask you, would you rather start with the bad news and move towards the good news, or would you rather start with maybe the defense and move towards the bad news of the offense? So which one do you want to start with? Because I think I'm if we were to recorded this last night, I would have probably been asking us to edit some parts out. But I think that I'm a little bit more level headed
Yeah.
right now, and it's up to you, whichever one you want to start with.
Let's end on the good note. So I mean, and I
I love it.
think, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, to everybody listening. We're going to spend the majority of this podcast discussing the offense side of the football. And that's not to take away from the defense and what they did yesterday. You're not going to hear any slander from me toward Kane Womack and that defensive staff
Man.
and those players, because they were lights out yesterday, and we're going to give them their due at the end of the podcast. But you mentioned special teams, and you mentioned the offense basically lost you this game.
Yeah.
And I think, you made the comment about how you felt after last year and after this year's game that Alabama was the better team. And I would agree with you. And that's not taken away from Oklahoma, because, look, Oklahoma defensively, we all knew coming into this game that it was not a great matchup for Alabama, especially with the way they rush the passer, with their scheme, with the way that they mix up their looks pre to post snap, the exotic simulated pressure package that they have is among the best in college football. We knew how good that they were defensively, but we also knew that offensively for them, it was a little bit of a struggle. So you would think that if the trends going into this game, if who the teams had been who they were all year, you liked Alabama. Alabama hadn't turned the ball over all year. Oklahoma hadn't generated a ton of turnovers all year. That was like the one big thing defensively that they were missing. Now, they did against Tennessee, and they did yesterday, so maybe they're peaking at the right time and on a little bit of a trend of taking the ball away. And if you add that component to the rest of what they do at such a high, excellent level, I mean, they're going to be a tough out going forward just because of their defense alone. But I want to put this in context for you. Alabama had 3 turnovers yesterday. They had the fumble by Ryan Williams, which we will spend a lot of time on Ryan Williams today, because I'm going to just let everybody know I'm not going to criticize the kid, but as a player, we've got to have a serious conversation about Ryan Williams. And we've skirted around it and hinted around it this year, but we're having the full gauntlet today. We're going to have the full unleashing of the Ryan Williams experience in 2025. You had Ty's pick 6, and then you had the Ty fumble. So you had those 3 turnovers. But you also had Daniel Hill who fumbled.
Yep. I was going to mention that.
You also had another pick that Ty threw that was called back because of pass interference, and Jeremy Bernard basically fumbled the ball 2 times, but he was down prior to the ball coming out. But you almost had 7 turnovers in that game yesterday. And that is so uncharacteristic of what you have been all year. And ultimately, that is how upsets happen. That is how a team that only gains 212 yards throughout the day wins the ball game, because you continually give them the ball in your territory. And that, to me, Chase, is where the game was won and lost.
Yeah, it's really that simple. Like, it's not a complex game to necessarily break down of how did this happen. You can't look at a particular stat, except the exception being the turnovers.
Yeah.
But if you looked at the total yardage gained by Oklahoma, I think what encapsulates it is they're interviewing Mateer at the end of the game with 0 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, and they're interviewing him like he's the hero. Like, they're probably looking for who are they supposed to interview, because Alabama really kind of put the ball, in their pocket and let them just run it into the end zone. So, man, you're right. Is there another storyline though? I think you said Brian Williams is what I heard you say, but I also, the headline, the tip of the pyramid here is the turnovers. But Speaking on that, is there any other thing that you'd like to just go ahead and line up that we need to talk about as to why Alabama lost this football game?
Well, a lot of people get frustrated after you win and you point out areas of improvement or flaws on a team that continually rear their ugly head, and you say, you kind of, sound the alarm and are like, eventually this is going to get you beat. Mm-hmm. Eventually this is going to get you beat. And aside from the turnovers, I felt like every fatal flaw offensively that Alabama has had this year reared its ugly head. The offensive line being inconsistent, especially in pass protection, reared its ugly head. Not being able to generate a consistent ground game, which I will say Alabama generated more of a ground game than I thought they would coming into the game, but it still wasn't nowhere where it needs to be. And ultimately, this is where I land and what I think is really interesting to unpack. Coming away from this game, and I've felt it for the past 2 or 3 weeks, and I want to get your take on this. I think from a construction standpoint, this offense is flawed because it is entirely too reliant on the quarterback. And when I say that, it's because Ty Simpson is a first-year starter. I get he's been in the program for 4 years, but he is a first-year starter. And literally, for the offense to function, it is all him. Literally. Now, you had a little bit more run game or, of a rushing attack against Oklahoma, but for the vast majority of the year, it has been, Ty, it is all on you. Ty, it is all on you. Well, when you face a defense like this, who is going to get theirs? And Ty got his too. Everyone wants to act like Ty played awful. Ty didn't play awful. He didn't play great by any stretch of the imagination. He definitely missed throws that he should make, made some questionable decisions, no doubt about that, and we'll dive into that further. But if the bar for you winning a game or having a successful offensive day is that your quarterback has to be near perfect, I think there is a flaw in your offensive construct. And I also think this was another takeaway that I had from this game, and then I want to get you to react. Not only is the system flawed from a construction standpoint, but it really hit me yesterday that Alabama doesn't have a special playmaker.
Mm-mm.
I love Jeremy Bernard. Jeremy Bernard's awesome. He's not special. He's not elite. Ryan Williams was supposed to be that guy, and again, we'll get to him here in a little bit. He's been anything but that this year. Lottie Brooks may be, but he's a freshman. Your best offensive player yesterday was Josh Cuevas.
Oh, yeah.
Who's your tight end, who played outstanding, and then you went away from him, didn't even throw to him in the fourth quarter. So, am I off base, Chase, or do you kind of see some similar issues?
Let me balance what you just said, because I do think what you're saying has a lot of validity to it. This system that they've brought in is extremely quarterback reliant.
Yes.
In some ways, I would say, hey, if I'm a quarterback sitting in high school, I mean, what system would you want to play in? Would you rather play in this or the A.J. McCarron style offense?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I'm trying to figure out in my head, and Hampton, we could have a whole nother podcast on this, is with some of the rule changes, I wonder if that's why the offense is constructed the way that it is, being able to try to control the ball. And what I just want to balance this with is, isn't it almost impressive that Ty can have as bad of a game as he did yesterday, and we only lose by 2 points? Like, if you make the field goal, which Pat McAfee's pulling kids in that have never kicked before to make that field goal. I know we're talking about in a what-if scenario, but score-wise, if you make that field goal, you win the game. That's what I want to balance with is I think what you're saying has a lot of validity, but man, they're building this where it seems like we want to try to control the ball. We've got a great defense, and I just wonder if they're trying to build this kind of offensive, not scheme, I'm going to use the word philosophy that allows us to, and you almost saw it yesterday, go down, kick a field goal, and win the game and just move on to the next one. Kind of like the NFL is. Like in the NFL, you don't just walk around beating teams by more than a touchdown. Like the spread is rarely more than 7, and I wonder if that's just the way that they've chosen to build this team. And while I will balance what I just said with, I think that's why it's just so fragile. Like we've been playing this, we've had these holes like you've talked about. And I think just what's been discouraging, and at the same time, yesterday it did not surprise me because it felt like we were playing on borrowed time.
Yes.
Ty really did have to be as special as he was. And it's quarterback friendly in the sense of you want to play in this, they're going to give you the ball to make decisions. But at the end of the day, like you said, we haven't had a run game. And yesterday, of all things, like of all people to have our run game kind of show up against Oklahoma feels like if you were to tell me that we would have find a little bit of a run game against Oklahoma, I don't think you could have convinced me that we lost. Or, yeah, that we were going to lose the game.
Yeah.
So we found some run game, but I wonder, like, what I think I want to ask of Ty's play is he did play okay.
Yeah.
He had several tragic mistakes, obviously cost us the game, but I'm still trying to figure out, and Hampton, here's my question of how you want to label this, is we still cannot connect on that deep ball. We did we did to Horton. Why that play isn't thrown one more yard into the end zone, it kind of blows my mind a little bit, but I'm not going to get too critical of that play. It just feels like we can't seem to find the deep ball. That's the only thing you can really criticize of his hole as a quarterback. That, and then maybe hold on the ball for too long. But let me ask you this. Tell me if this statement is true or false. I'm going to ask specifically of Ty Simpson. Does Ty struggle with, and I don't know if the right word is touch, but on those deep balls, it feels like it's got so much zip and not enough air for our guys to run up over, because it felt like that's what Oklahoma was actually tempting us to do, is we don't feel like you've connected on this deep ball. Therefore, we're actually going to, you saw the run game have a little bit of success, but it felt like they were going to try to take away the middle of the field. So I guess true or false, and get your reaction to that. With Ty's play yesterday, does he struggle with, is it touch? Why are we not connecting, opening up the deep side of the field with his receivers?
Great question. So I feel like with the deep ball, it isn't like, I'm not going to invoke a former quarterback, but there was a former quarterback that Alabama had that when he missed, it was by yards. It wasn't by inches or feet, it was by yards. I feel like Ty, throughout the year, especially on the deep ball, has been off by just a little bit. And I don't think it's too much zip, because I think there are some times, I believe, where there might not be enough arc on the ball. And then there might be a little bit of an overcorrection on the next throw where there's too much arc and it gets hung up in the air and it's underthrown. So it's like finding that sweet spot. Yesterday, he only threw one deep ball, and that was kind of on a broken play where Ryan had a step. He clearly got interfered with. I watched the game copy last night, and Greg McElroy was talking about, I think it's a good no call when the guy literally grabs his face mask. I mean, I get if he didn't grab his face mask, and they were hand fighting a little bit, but that's the penalty. Every day of the week, that is a penalty. And that's your allegedly $1.8 million receiver. I would like for him to come down with a contested catch every now and again, and the ball not have to be perfect every freaking time that it's thrown to you. But other than that, Alabama really didn't throw it deep. Where against LSU and against South Carolina and against Tennessee a little bit to a lesser extent, that had been kind of something that was evolving within the offense of, hey, we really want to stretch the field vertically a little bit more than we've been doing. Against Oklahoma, I felt like they were taking that away. Like you said, they were trying to take away that intermediate part of the field. And also, what do you need when you're having a long developing passing play or a deep vertical shot? You need your offensive line to hold up. Against that front, that is not going to happen consistently. Yeah. And I think there are times where Ty holds on to the ball. But when I watched last night, like when I rewatched the game, to me, a lot of it is just on the offensive line not picking, like on a blitz. I'll give you a couple examples. On the pick six, not a good throw by Ty. Not a good throw, 100%. But two things happen on that play that other people won't talk about. Horton gets bumped and gets redirected off his route and throws off the timing of it. That's one. The most important thing that happens, though, is your right guard blows the assignment, lets the guy come right through the gap and get in your quarterback's face when you're supposed to block inside out, not outside in. Him, Formby, and Carroll both take the outside guy who Ty can deal with. He can't deal with somebody right in his face. So you got that. You got another sack where Jam Miller, who, God love him, he hadn't been the same since the concussion. He just hasn't. He's not the same player. And if he's not going to pass protect, he doesn't need to be playing. I'll just say that right now. And I know you've been ahead of that and you've not been a Jam fan this whole year.
Somebody
I'm with
clip
you
that.
now.
Somebody
Because
clip
guess
this.
what? Guess what? After the Missouri game, the dude hadn't been the same freaking guy. And I know
Yeah.
he might be hurt. I know he might be banged up. But if you're not going to pass protect and protect your quarterback, it was a 4-man rush. And you just miss the guy. And that completely discombobulates the second drive of the game. Then you've got another one on the second to final drive of the game. Daniel Hill, they bring a cat corner blitz. You have him. You have an initial start. But then you don't sustain, and then you get your quarterback sacked again. Then on the fumble, Michael Carroll, you had the wide stack out to the outside, so you're literally not having anybody in there to really help your quarterback out or help your offensive line out in pass protection. So he goes wide 9 on Michael Carroll. Michael doesn't ever get a hand on him, and every route that you have is a long, slow developing route. You're not giving him a quick answer. In that kind of scenario, it's like, oh, well, Ty needs to get the ball out. To who? They're all covered in that scenario. So there were instances throughout the game where he did get the ball out on time. And really, I think he made the offensive line look a lot better than they actually did because they were confused with everything Brent Venables was throwing at him, where he's got everybody up on the line and he'll send the corner, he'll drop the outside linebacker, and he muddies up the picture very, very well. And I think throughout the game, especially late, I thought you saw the cumulative effect of Ty getting hit and Ty kind of seeing ghost to an extent because of the offensive line and because of what Venables was doing. Again, he didn't have his best game. I'm not going to come on here and say he played great, but he still threw for 330. That's the second best quarterback performance against them all year statistically through the air. So he didn't play awful by any stretch of the imagination, but to your point about wanting to play this ball control offense, you know the best way to do that? Yes, you got to have an efficient passing game, but you got to be able to run the ball.
Yeah.
And when you have a lead, bleed the clock out. And Alabama cannot do that right now. And the only game that they've done that is Vanderbilt this year, when they had that 8-minute drive in the fourth quarter. And until they do, you're going to continually be in these one-score games, and eventually you're going to come on the wrong side of one like he did yesterday.
Yeah. No, and like that, I think it's the exact point that we're getting at is that yesterday should have not been surprising is not the word that comes to mind. It's just at some point it catches up to you. Like when you don't improve on what you need to improve on, you don't have a run game. However you want to diagnose that, it really seems to come continuously back to our offensive line. And if I had to, the word out-coached comes to mind, not in this, we didn't prepare, we were lazy, we took them for granted. It's just this, Venables seems to, man, he wants it. Like you could see, and I was actually talking to a guy at church today that was talking about how he's calling plays for their defense.
Yes.
Their defense, like you said, I mean, it looked like he's got some guys out there that he loves to just draw X's and O's. And man, what if we did this and we'll show him this? And dude, you give him 2 weeks to prep for this game. I mean, that's where I felt like they spent 2 weeks getting ready to show Alabama everything they could scheme up. And it seems to continuously come back to, sure, I guess we just don't have the guys on the offensive line this year. And it's probably been true the whole time. And I know we've said that. But at some point, man, we've got to figure out, so what? Like, what then do we do? And it seems like we just are willing to kind of try to figure out another way, which is Ty be brilliant and be, I mean, not just a first round pick, but the first overall pick is how we're going to win football games is what it seems like the solution is. I thought it was interesting that they went to Carroll, that all of a sudden Foreman moved inside, and it's like, oh man, that probably should have been a sign. They went through the bye week and didn't like what they saw, and all of a sudden now they're making another change. But like you said, I don't know if I watched yesterday's game and say, man, the offensive line just played the worst game they've ever played. In some ways, I was like, I think they actually played better than they kind of have, but that's not really saying much. It's still, we're still getting blown up. We're still getting beat. But at least it didn't feel like there was just every single play people are coming through. And again, if I were to rewatch it, I might have a different opinion. But I didn't feel like – it felt like they took a half a step. The run game took a half a step.
Yeah.
But we talked about Cuevas. I mean, I wish we could go on longer, but nothing more really needs to be said other than, man, he played a really good football game. And you wish that when you have some of your big contributors play their best football, that should win you big games. And what I think that I was just confused by, and we'll talk about Ryan Williams, like you said, in a second, I just couldn't believe we didn't go to him on fourth down. If a guy just seems to be catching everything out there, I would rather see him drop it than a guy that
Yes.
struggled this year. That was like you
Yes.
said, we went away from him, but man, when the game's on the line, I wish we would have gone to him.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my, and if I could go back to the Jam, I've thought all year that Jam just didn't have what we needed. Like, we needed someone that had just an extreme amount of talent and kick and boost and juke. I mean, we needed somebody back there who could really make something happen because our offensive line was so bad. I think Jam's a great guy. I love that he has a friendship with Ty, but I've just not seen it. I don't know hardly at all this season that he is the guy that we need right now for what our offense, like the buildup is.
Mm-hmm.
I've been proud of Daniel Hill. Been proud of the way that he has, I think, stepped into this role. I thought Clint Lamb had a really good take on a back this big usually gets better with carries, and that the defense almost gets worn out trying to tackle a guy that big.
Mm-hmm.
That feels somewhat like what this team needs. But
Yes.
again, I think we found a little bit in the run game, not enough to say that we've figured it out because obviously we lost the football game. Hampton, one of the guys that I would say that I have not, that has regressed, and I feel bad saying that because that's a pretty strong word.
Yeah.
This is a game where you needed Jeremy Bernard to really step out. And in past games when we talked about that elite playmaker, Jeremy was the one who we were like, man, it just seems like anytime he has the ball, he's falling forward, he's getting yards. It just seemed like he was playing it. You know, DeBoer talks a lot about kind of like this, just be able to play, like almost have fun, like you know what your assignment is, and it's simple, it's not complex, where you really can go and be the better athlete and have success. And I just did not feel like yesterday he played to a level that we needed him to play. Some of those were some passes that were not perfect. Like you said, man, we needed those. And I feel like he has struggled a little bit with drops. And it felt like in a game where we needed him to be extremely present, I felt like his contribution was absent. And just a guy that I wish would have had a better football game. With that being said, I mean, just give me some reaction to, I don't want to pinpoint a guy that's not worth pinpointing. I was looking for him to be, man, really a part of this win. So what do you kind of think about that?
I thought you made awesome points there, Chase, and I really want to hammer on two of them, and then we'll kind of get to the germ of it all. But you mentioned the offensive line, and while I do think they maybe made and took some steps forward, for sure, I do, and I think the combination that they had yesterday is probably their best combination. But they tried that combination a ton in Game 5 against Vanderbilt, and then never went back to it. So why, after LSU, I mean, you had a whole bye week to experiment and tinker with that. You left Roberts at right guard against LSU, Formby at right tackle, and then you come out against Oklahoma, which, especially for Michael Carroll, is a much more difficult matchup than LSU. And you throw him in, like, I get wanting to, I don't mind rotating along the line if you've got two or three players that deserve reps. AKA when in 2022, Alabama tried that with Tyler Booker because he was a freshman and they wanted to get him a ton of reps. And they've done the same with Michael Carroll this year. But like rotating so much at left and right guard when you're literally just shuffling chairs on the deck of the Titanic, basically, because they're all not good options. It's a sinking ship no matter what. I think that in and of itself is an issue. And so I think that Ty honestly covered up, like I mentioned earlier, he covered up a lot for him yesterday by getting the ball out quick, by making some plays out of structure. And I did like that Ryan Grubb actually called some read option, some quarterback design runs that they had to account for. We probably could have seen a little bit more of that, to be quite honest with you.
Same thing. Yeah, I could have seen more.
I 100% could have seen more. Now, I could have seen one thing that, you mentioned, I think you said in the game, like there are times where our offense just feels so stagnant and like everything is so difficult and so hard.
Mhm.
And I think part of that is there's not enough yards that are generated through easy touches. Like
Yeah.
how you don't I think we threw 2 bubble screens yesterday to receivers. We don't have any jet motion type action,
Mhm.
no
Yeah.
pop passes, nothing like that. No traditional RPO glance patterns, none of that. And
Yeah.
I think especially against Oklahoma with their pass rush, that's how dude, Ole Miss barbecued Oklahoma by running that exact game plan. Why you didn't incorporate that against them in yours, I don't quite know.
Yeah, and I was just gonna add, you're right. There's something to. I think I used the word stalled. Like it just feels like
Yes.
our offense stalls out, and it's almost every drive. It's almost every time we get a new we get first downs. It almost feels like we don't have a 4 yard play. We cannot find a 4 yard play without it being seriously a trick play. I mean, we've got to have some reverse or something like that in order to get 4 yards. But you're right. It feels like we're kind of waiting to throw the ball across the middle. Like we are doing whatever we got to do so that it's 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 6, and then we get to connect across the middle and type stripes it, and we're all talking about how amazing it is. But it really feels like we don't have much of a like like you said, man, just some screen passes or get those guys going left and right and get them coming down and then going up. And we just did not seem to do that yesterday. But I do want to take you back if
Yeah.
you finish those points. I do want to take you to it just felt like Jeremy did not have the game that we needed out of him yesterday.
Yes.
And again, I'm not there are guys who hold bigger maybe have more things to account for.
Yes.
But it felt like in big games, you want your big players. Cuevas did that. Outside of that, Daniel Hill maybe took a half a step up. But man, I was really looking for Jeremy, and it felt like yesterday was not his best game. And I would say let me ask it like this: It doesn't to me. It did not feel like yesterday was a like a one off. It felt like it feels like it's becoming a little bit of a pattern that him and Ty struggled to connect. It always seems to be a little bit out of reach. He's dropping the ball some. We saw that, like you said, a fumble. Like, just talk to me a little bit about where Jeremy is in the as he came into this game, and then what you were looking to see out of him, and maybe where do we kind of go with him coming out of this game?
Jeremy is our number 1 wide receiver, and I think that's a problem that he is our number 1 wide receiver. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally.
And let me expound on that because like I mentioned, it really clicked. Like I watched a little bit of Texas Georgia last night, not a ton. But you watch the receivers that Texas has. Ryan Wingo, Livingstone, the Moore kid, they move differently than the guys that we have. And I love Jeremy Bernard. Like I said, Jeremy is a really, really good player. Really good player. He will be a good pro because he's solid, dependable, runs routes well, has good hands for the most part. But to your point, when has he made the spectacular catch? When have any of our receivers made the catch of like, yeah, man, Ty didn't throw a perfect ball, but man, our receivers came down with it and made him look good. I've seen all the dadgum time around the country. Look, shoot, last week, Xavier Thomas for LSU, full extension on an awfully thrown ball by Michael Van Buren. When has that happened with Alabama's receivers and Jeremy in particular? And one thing, I think Jeremy's an awesome kid. I think he's about the right stuff. And again, he is Alabama's most dependable wide receiver, and he's their best receiver, which again, I think is an issue because you're limited from a ceiling perspective. His floor is really high, but he's not elite. He doesn't have elite speed. He doesn't have elite size. He doesn't have elite athleticism. He's just a really good football player. And again, that may come on strong. I don't think it is. I think I'm just speaking facts, honestly. But to me, that is an issue. And then Horton hadn't looked quite right since South Carolina, in my humble opinion. So he hadn't looked good. And then again, Lottie's a freshman. But one thing also I didn't love about Germ, there were a couple of times where either Ty missed him or that one that was off his hands that, again, needs to be a better throw. But again, can you make a difficult catch for once? And he kind of like, I don't like showing up your quarterback. You shouldn't do that. Especially when for the majority of the year, he's been giving you the ball and you've had arguably your best year as a collegiate wide receiver. He did that a couple times yesterday, which I really didn't like. And to your point about the trend, he started off fire hot. Those first 2 to 3
Yeah.
games, it's kind of tapered off since.
Yeah.
And I'll get your reaction to that. And then really, I want to spend time with Ryan Williams before we kind of wrap up the offense and kind of hit anything else that we want to hit on that side
Yeah.
of the ball.
Do you mind if I ask you one question?
Yeah,
Because I think we do need to answer. We've said this language and we've talked about it. And let me just clarify something. If you're listening to this, Hampton did go to the game yesterday. Obviously, I didn't. But just to make that clear, Hampton saw this at a different vantage point that some of us did. And so that's just worth noting as you're talking. There's some context that you can kind of see.
Yes.
And again, you've rewatched the game, but I think that's just helpful for someone to know that you're actually there seeing what it feels like. You're not getting the zoomed in version where it's going off his fingertips. You're like, man, everything kind of felt like that. That's the ball you got to have. The other teams seem to make a play and catch that ball, and it just doesn't need to be much more than that. Sometimes it's just a ball you just gotta. You're getting paid to make.
Yes.
But let me ask you this: I think that we're pressing into something, and here's where I kind of want to maybe just clarify is this offensive philosophy, and I keep using that word just because I don't know if I've got enough data yet of just the DeBoer offense, the Grubb offense, to say this is like this year's scheme, just because it's changed so much from last year to this year. One thing that seems to be a line that you'll hear almost maybe analysts use is like they'll give more opportunities to guys that produce. Like if you produce, you get more opportunities. What we have seen and what you're saying, I'm just saying it in a different way, is our wide receiver room went from being, oh, we're the best in the SEC, and I'm just from now on, if that's said, I'm just going to assume that they're going to be extremely disappointing. That's how I'm handling that. That word now means to me equals extremely disappointing, not a star part of your team. But what we're saying is that our wide receivers, Jeremy's, I wish I'd say that he plateaued, but he was really hot. He's cooled off. He's headed the wrong direction. Ryan Williams, and we're going to talk about him in a second, but just to clarify this, it feels like the production has actually gone to Cuevas yesterday, who I think has been very consistent and reliable and a guy that you want to go to. He's been, but man, it seems that what was true yesterday that hurt was Jeremy's gone off, Ryan Williams gone off, and then Lotzie just did not get the ball much yesterday. He got it some, but I don't know if he's still sick or if he's just working his way. Like he's still like maybe he lost a bunch of weight when he was sick, whenever he didn't make the trip to South Carolina. Horton, I've just considered he's just kind of, I hate to use the word injury prone. That feels like that's such a spell on somebody now, but it's just like, man, he really, to me, has not really contributed to the point that he's worth mentioning. He's nowhere near our wide receiver one, but that the Brooks was out of the picture for most of yesterday. The most memorable thing I can think of is when it was 4th and 1 or so, and they've got Caden Proctor lined up in the back, and they kind of did the toss behind to him. But I'm like, dude, he's the only guy. Here's what I'm trying to say is that he's the only guy that I think you look at and you're like, man, that guy has different speed and twitch, and he's hard to tackle.
Yep.
These other guys are headed the wrong direction, Hampton, and I don't know what to really contribute that to, because like you said, Ty's played very well for the most part, had a bad game yesterday. It just does not seem like he's gotten much help from his weapons, and maybe that's just that what's been true the whole time is that he's thrown some really great passes that have made those guys look great, that now we're just starting to see. They're good receivers. They can play at Alabama, but they are not the guys that are going to make a bad throw look like something you can take to the house. So you can just simply agree with that. I wanted to kind of clarify that it does seem like Lotzie is a guy that you look at and feels different. These other guys, I feel like Jeremy's probably just 20 pounds away from being a tight end. Like that. If you look, I think he's got good hands, but I just wanted to see more out of him yesterday because he felt like a leader, and he just seemed kind of absent. And I think it would have been a great time for him to just pull through. And not last sentence is, I was talking to some A&M guys today, and it felt like at halftime, they just decided that they were the better team and they
Yes.
were going to go win the football game.
Mhm.
And that's what I felt like we kind of lacked, is just no one really stepped up and said, hey, put it on my shoulders, Ty, you can trust me, other than Cuevas. We're going to go win this football game.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if you've got a reaction to that. That was just me kind of clarifying,
Mhm.
get some thoughts together here at the end as we kind of move on the conversation. So what's your reaction?
Not to sound like a broken record, but it's an excellent point. It's an
Mhm.
excellent point. And I think what you have seen as the season has gone on, Ty was already throwing into pretty tight windows. And he was precise and he was accurate. Every ball was right there. Well, now defenses have more film on you. They know what you're
Yeah.
going to do generally. So those windows are a little tighter. And your receivers overall, now there are exceptions, especially on play action, where that little dig route in the middle of the field where they throw to Jeremy, he's always pretty much open on those.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of that is because of the conflict that play action presents. But these receivers aren't generating a ton of separation, and Lotsier is the only one that you look at and you're like, yeah, that guy is truly explosive. He is truly a different type and different caliber of athlete. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the 2 or 3 best games that you have seen from the Alabama aerial attack is when all 3 to 4 guys were healthy. You know, Wisconsin, which again, Wisconsin's not a very good team. Don't get me wrong. But all 3 or 4 are healthy. Georgia, Vanderbilt, Missouri, Tennessee, all those guys, for the most part, except for Tennessee, Lotsier did not play, I don't believe, or if he played, it was very limited. I think as they have kind of dipped, so has Ty's play to an extent. And one thing that really alarmed, and it might have been just me at the game, it looked like they gave a lot more snaps to Ryan yesterday, where it had been they were giving more snaps to Lotsier. And I don't really know what that is. And then I think we can kind of transition to the Ryan Williams point. And I want to get your take on that.
Hampton, just before we move on, do you mind if I say 2 things on this?
Yeah.
I just want to say that with with Lotzi, the one thing that he does well that our other guys I've just noticed have not, German to the side, but some of these other guys, dude, they don't know how to draw a penalty. Like in some ways, you got to kind of sell it, and it feels like Ryan Williams has no idea how to draw a penalty. And again, Isaiah Horton, man, that one's one that you just don't count on, but you got to draw. But Lotzi just kind of has even that it factor of when the ball's underthrown, it's like he knows how to draw the foul, just like he's a basketball player. Almost that's probably true. Probably played basketball, knows how to sell and draw a penalty. You don't want to count on that, but man, if you're to the point you can't get to the ball because he's executing a penalty on you, then you need to draw it, sell it a little bit. The second thing that, and before we move to Ryan, because we need to, I want to just say this before I forget. I don't want to play Oklahoma in the last like 2 or 3 games of the season. It's just not good. When I said styles make fights, like I don't want to put all this film on there and then give them a week to digest all of it and then come out with this excellent game plan. Like, dude, this is, if I'm Kalen DeBoer, I'm asking, how can we move these guys up to like the second game of the season? I want no film for them to digest because, dude, they are having a field day looking at everything we've ever shown, thought about, pressed. Hampton's moved Ryan Williams.
Yeah. I'm with you. Where I don't know, they have PACs in politics. I'll start a PAC, a lobbying firm, to get us to play Oklahoma in the middle of the regular season, maybe game 4 or 5. And them not have a bye before. I'm all for that because guess what? They had a bye last year before they played us. And
it's working.
It's working.
For them, you couldn't force them to sign that.
Yeah. Well, and really all year, I believe Alabama's played 4 or 5 teams coming off a bye, which is a massive disadvantage. And again, I'm not saying woe is me or anything like that. I'm just saying that is a massive disadvantage for Alabama when you have that, and then you have the gauntlet that they ran through earlier in the year. But I totally agree, and I do think on your Lotsier point, as the years go on, I trust this staff's ability to evaluate receivers. I believe Derek Meadows is going to be a really good guy when he kind of gets more reps under him. Different body style, different type of receiver, but I think he will be really good. I like some of the other guys that they coming in, Sedarian Morgan being one of them. No doubt about it. So I'm excited about the future of this room. But part of the reason you mentioned and kind of joke that if I hear before the year, this is going to be the best blank room in the country. And one reason that this was said about the receiver room is because everybody and their mama was assuming that Ryan Williams was going to be a huge step above what he was last year. And what we have gotten is a huge step below what he was last year. The drops have continued. There's no doubt about that. They were chronic last year, and I believe they're probably even worse this year. And last year we were a little bit more willing to forgive because he was 17 years old.
I think I heard that on a broadcast.
Huh?
I said, I think I heard that on a broadcast that he was 17 years old last year.
Maybe a time or two.
18. Yeah.
Maybe a time or two that it was mentioned.
Yeah.
Now he's 18 years old. And I'm going to give my rant and then get you to respond. This situation is very reminiscent of Jalen Milroe last year. And let me explain why. I am not going at the kid. I'm going at the play on the field. Let me get that out there. But all these fans who want to coddle this kid, like they coddle Jalen Milroe and just make every excuse under the sun when he doesn't play well. Why? Why? You know, he had drops. Well, guess who else struggled with drops? Julio Jones. What are we doing? What are we doing? You know what else? Yeah, Julio did struggle with drops. But guess what he also did? He blocked his rear end off. He did the little things right. He ran good routes. He was a good teammate in the game, blocking his tail off, running routes when he knew he wasn't going to get the ball, doing everything full speed, with intensity, with passion, and he set the dadgum tone. When does Ryan Williams set the tone? When does he set the tone? I'm like, for real, it's crazy. Stop comparing him to Julio just because he's got a little bit of dropsies, and Julio did too. So that means we need to give him grace. Ryan Williams has hurt Alabama for the majority of this year. He has hurt them. He hurt them yesterday because for some unbeknownst reason to me, Jay Nunez thought it'd be a great idea to put him back at punt returner, which they had not done all freaking year long. And I kid you not, Chase Haney, I knew from where I was sitting up there close to Jesus, I knew that he was going to fumble that football. I kid you not. When he made one move, I said, oh crap, here it comes. Like just a pit in my stomach. Knew that he was going to fumble the football. And by gosh, he did. By gosh, he did. Then I'll give him credit. He comes back, Ty trusts him, makes a great throw in between the safety and from the safety. He goes up, and then he has the ball like a dang fullback because he wasn't going to let it go that time. But let me also say this, and we have said this on this show because you're going to hear it on this show. You might not hear it on other shows because we want to, tiptoe around like he does on the field, around the situation. We're not doing that here. I'm going to call it like I see it. There was I believe it was second down, the play on the drive before the half. They throw it to him. He gets it. He can get a first down. He just got to lower his head. Show a little bit of physicality because, it is football. You got to be a little physical to play this sport. No, he goes down. He just falls down. He doesn't fight for the extra yard. When he's blocking on the screen, he can't even stay on his feet. His feet go limp. He doesn't engage with the blocker and drive him. It just goes limp. And then to the creme de la creme, the cherry on top at the end of the game. No, it was not a good throw by Ty. But the route that Ryan had on that 4th and 6 was flat out embarrassing. And yeah, Ty went to where he needed to go with the ball, but there wasn't any separation because on that route, you need to at least sell that you're going vertically, then give a hard stem and go straight. You run straight along the line. What did he do? Just a little casual turn, and he rounded out his route, making it much easier for the DB to make a play on the ball. That is been an issue all year long. not running routes full speed, being afraid to get hit over the middle, dropping balls, and at some point you were getting paid a ton of money in NIL. You were getting paid a ton of money in NIL, and you have been just a guy this year. You've been a Jag. And again, I want Ryan to succeed. It's better for Alabama if he succeeds. But I'm tired of everybody. We've protected him and protected him and protected him. And again, I'm not attacking the kid's character. I'm saying what I see on the field. And I know he's been banged up some. I know it. I get it. I understand it. But Parker Brailsford was out there after the second quarter with a boot tape ankle the size of, I mean, it was huge. He was playing with a block on his foot, fighting his tail off. And Ryan just consistently this year has come up small in big moments. And I'm just infuriated by it because I think, again, you'll never know, but Alabama was about to take control of the game right there. It was 10-7, defense forced a 3 and out, you get the ball, you go and score, and it's 14-10. Instead, it's 17-7. And now Oklahoma's got all the momentum, and you thought you had climbed up out of the hole you dug yourself in just to go get kicked right back down it by a mistake from your superstar. Rant done.
Yeah, no, I think that, I mean, that's what we need to hear. At this point, we've been avoiding this conversation, and yeah, I always want to assume the best. I'm assuming that he's hurt, that he's got a lingering injury, and that he does have some hesitancy to catch the ball across the middle. Let's just assume all those are true. All right, I'm benefit of the doubt. Everything you say, I agree with. It's funny. I actually kind of grabbed something that was sitting here beside me.
Yeah.
I work for a church. One of the hardest things to do is how do you form a team of volunteers and motivate them and lead them? I mean, when people are not paid to be there, it is really hard to, like, where do you press and where do you not press? And there was just one point that I pulled this out. And this doesn't exactly fit this, but I think there's something here that you've got a guy who everyone that's sitting in the stands and everyone's in the locker room knows that this guy is getting paid to be a superstar. Last year he was. Let me pause for a second and say one thing I want to give you credit on is I think that you point out this is not just this season. It really began to tail off. If I remember correctly, it actually was this game last year that just felt like he was completely absent. I could be misremembering that, but he had the game against Georgia, and then since that, it just slowly faded more and more and more. And it was really just a deep ball here and there that kept him in the conversation. Here's where I would add, and we can keep moving, is one of these points was how do you kind of build a good team? The fourth point was don't let non-performers off the hook. And what that means is, for me, I'm dealing with people that aren't being paid to be there. But I've got people that are really motivated, really excited to be here, that feel like it's something that they're called to do, that they enjoy doing. And then there's people that are like, I'm not paid to be here. Y'all are requiring me to be here, therefore I am, but I'm going to show up 10 minutes late. I'm not going to get up when the alarm goes off. I'm not going to get in the shower when I need to in order to get here in time. And how you handle, what this is pointing to is how you handle when those people underperform, either shows your most committed players that you're really about the vision you're trying to execute, or that you're not really about it. And we're getting to the point in the conversation where you're looking at this guy who has not performed. Like you said, there was something in your stomach. There was something probably in my stomach a little bit. And all it takes is a half a thought in his that he might fumble the football. And that is the difference between holding onto the ball securely and taking a hit, or, oh, shoot, what if this hits me and the ball comes out? That's the difference between fumbling the football in the SEC and not. Half a thought, half a second that goes through your brain. And we've just got, like, I was watching the Cowboys documentary and they talked about how hard Jimmy Johnson made these guys practice. I don't know. I don't want to go so far as to think he might transfer this next season. But, dude, at some point, we got to say who's really motivated to be here. And this is what you're going to have to go through. And we want to be loyal to our guys. But if you can't hang, this just might not be the place for you. Like, maybe a hard reset, either here or somewhere else, might be what's best for you and best for us. I don't want to overreact, but we're just getting to that point in the conversation where those targets need to go to someone else. If they're going to continually be dropped, you got to go figure that out in practice. You got to go figure that in the offseason. And maybe it's not here. So, Hampton, I do want to move us to maybe a more broad. You talked about special teams, so I want to just move us there. So finish the point on Ryan Williams, and then take us maybe just to a more broad special teams conversation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll try to make it brief. I know by all accounts the kid's a great teammate and he's beloved on the team. No doubt about it. I get it. But your point about at some point when you were consistently hurting the team, you have to be held accountable for your actions. And in this NIL world we're living in, I find it very, 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 very weird that Zier was taking a lot of his snaps. And then yesterday he played much more than he had been playing. And I don't know if that's a result of him getting healthier or what. But then you also put him back there at punt returner. And man, I don't know if you saw, but DeBoer lost his mind on him when he fumbled the ball. And, I don't want this to happen necessarily, but I do think you're close to the point of him leaving.
Yeah.
I really
the
do.
conversation is, what do you feel like you're losing? You're losing a guy who had a magical moment and has then been potential since then.
Well,
and I hope for the kid that he could figure it out. I hope he figures it out at Alabama. But if it takes him going somewhere else to figure this out, we can't continue to pay the tax on him not being confident or whatever.
And that's a great point. And I'm not being, and again, if my grandmother had wheels, she'd be a bike. But what would Ryan Williams be without that Georgia game?
Yeah.
What would he be? He wouldn't be on the cover of College Football 26, I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
Because he has come up small since then. He had a great game against Vanderbilt the week after. I will give him that. He had a good game then. But other than that, if he left, what are you missing? I saw someone say that they would I'd trade Cam Coleman for Ryan Williams straight up. And someone said no, because he does hundreds of other things that just you can't even, quantify. And I'm like, if you're talking about pure talent at receiver, if you would take Ryan Williams over Cam Coleman, then how much are you getting paid? I don't know what there is to discuss at this point.
Yeah.
Enough on Ryan.
Yeah, let me end by saying this. Yes. I think this shows us, and this is me just thinking program level, while he was thrown into it to begin with and had, again, magical moments. Last season was a movie for him. It might be teaching you how you're supposed to handle Keelan Russell, because he's going to get just as much stardom and people are going to be ready to have that conversation with him. And it just, for me, shows, hey, there's a lot of value in acclimating to a college program, the SEC. There's a lot to that. Hey, let's give Ryan some credit. He was not afforded that. He was thrust into this, and we don't know what all that costs. But again, it is at this all we can look at is what's going on the field. And in some ways, you're like, man, I almost wish if we could redo this. Is this showing that, man, he did not have enough time to acclimate? We can't psychoanalyze. We don't know at this point, but let's keep moving. Let's move to the special teams. Hampton, I want to tell you, this started right out of the gate. I said this in our group meeting. We are the most beta team right now when it comes to we want ball. Like that whole we win a coin toss, we want ball, dude. I'm done with it. We're not that team.
They did defer, to be fair.
We deferred. Okay,
they deferred to us. That's what we got.
Yeah, then to even think when we get they want us to have the ball first. We're just not that team, dude. I mean, it was so embarrassing. We get the ball, we go 3 and out. What do? We punt it. Here comes the special teams is where I'm taking us.
I know.
Well, first, the return wasn't anything to really write home about. Again, your environment. You see Kalen DeBoer smacking the goalpost. That looks great until you lose. It looks better than Shane Beamer at halftime down at College Station. But, man, it felt like we came out, didn't get anything on the kick return, go 3 and out, punt the ball. They return it. I mean, it's like here goes these special teams woes that seem to play a massive contribute. It was a contribute factor in the game. So again, we know he missed a kick, but Hampton, like, help me understand. Like, again, we've got to win at least two facets of the game. Yesterday, one offense, but man, it just feels like at times we need a kicker. Oklahoma's got a great kicker. Let's put it that way.
He's a weapon.
Great kicker.
Weapon.
But man, I mean, what do you make of it? I just it feels like when we are like when you can feel like we're going to struggle on one side of the ball, special teams is always like, we're going to go with the side that's struggling. Like we're going to go this way.
Let's throw our hat in the ring, baby. Let's go.
So,
well,
I mean, talk me through it.
Yeah, to that point, I'm not calling for anybody's job, but that position, Jay Nunez, your position may need to be reevaluated at the end of the year. I believe Alabama is 128th in special teams efficiency. They were 96th, I believe, going into the game.
Good grief.
You mentioned it, though. The punt, again, Watzier missed a tackle. Credit to him for getting his butt up, and he actually ended up making the tackle down the other 30. I give him an A+ for effort, but that started the game with, I mean, they had the ball on the 30-yard line, which again, that was a reoccurring theme of the entire game. You had the fumble with Ryan, and again, if Jay Nunez, if it was his bright idea to do that, you can clean out your office today. I mean, honestly, and again, I'm not advocating for anybody's job. I'm kind of half joking, but half not joking. But you have that, and then
if it happened, I called it.
Yeah, including some things with Miss Terry. But along that line, you talk about the kick before the half. That was so deflating, and
so deflating.
I don't know how it. I don't know the psychological disposition of the team, but I know for the stadium. Like, I was like, okay, we're down 3. We played awful. I'll take it. But, man, if you're tied 17-17 after everything that went wrong, you're feeling great going into that second half. And then when you end up losing by 2, it's further exacerbated. But on top of not only he missed the kick, it was partially blocked because the guy jumped the long snapper. But the long snapper, who has been prone to high snaps all year long, gets absolutely eviscerated on live TV by the kicker, who is making 68% of his kicks, mind you. This isn't Will Reichard lighting into this guy. This is Connor Talty. Like, that was an awful look. I get being frustrated, but, like, just blessing him out in front of God and everybody, just an awful look. I hated that. But honestly, special teams gave them 10 points, and then they took away 3 for Alabama. That's like that's 13 points right there. That if one of the plays goes a different way, we're having a different conversation today.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll ask you this, and then we can kind of maybe give, I don't know, little prognosis on the offense going forward, and then go to defense and talk about them quickly. But what good has special teams done all year?
Yeah.
They haven't had a quick return touchdown, no punt return touchdown. They've given up a kick return.
Hardly any return on the punts.
None.
And again, you know what you're getting. I'm not saying that's not the strategy. Like, hey, let's, I don't know, maybe try to block it and just have him fair catch it. But man, I mean, you've had nothing. I think that's why they put Ryan back there. Of let's just try to get something else back there. That proved to not be worth it. Mm-hmm. And you're right. We just have not gotten any. What did I say? Juice for the squeeze. I mean, we really hadn't.
Yes.
It feels like we've. So again, if it's 3 facets of the game, not to just continue to go back to Graham saying that, but it's like we've always lost the special teams.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to then win on offense and defense has kind of proven to do that. And then yesterday, the offense did. Hampton, the one thing I'll say about kicking, just kicking in high school, that where Talty showing up. I mean, dude, I get being the moment and it being captured. Here's the thing, bro, is at the end of the day, I mean, I guess the other side of this is let's be glad it didn't get fully blocked and returned for a touchdown. Let me preface with that, because He got through. I know some people were calling that a penalty. I haven't rewatched it to know. And honestly, the rules around that feel so inconsistent of whether it gets called or not. Again, you just can't count on
Very
that.
ambiguous. Yeah.
Very much so. Here's what I'll say as a kicker is that short of a kick, you're not having to, you can put more arch on it. That guy still might get a hand on it. Here's what I'm trying to say is if you feel like your timing and these guys are inconsistent, sometimes you just got to let them get the ball on the ground. And they did. Like, the only job you have is to kick that ball straight. Line up and kick the ball straight. When that doesn't happen and the ball gets onto the ground, it's your fault. It's your fault if the ball was on the ground, it's not tilted over. I hear guys talk about kicking laces. Sure, but man, that doesn't impact I think as much as some guys want to blame that to be. Like, if everything's good and you hit laces, it doesn't feel good, but you might miss it, but it's still like a solid kick. That ball was, again, it's tipped, but this guy's, I mean, you got to, if the ball gets down, you got to make the kick. You got to kick it straight. And again, I need to rewatch. I might rewatch it and see that guy actually got through and him tipping it caused it, but just it's not what we needed in that moment was that blow up. Go have that in the locker room, but we just need something out of special teams.
And here's what's crazy. Shane Beamer, it's not a good Sunday for him after yesterday, but how much of an idiot is he to allow Alabama to score a touchdown on the final drive of the game when we played them a couple weeks back and not making Connor Talty make a game-winning kick?
Yeah.
How
totally.
stupid can you be?
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, we knew it before that game, but you especially have even more evidence that should have been what you did.
I'm sure Oklahoma was thinking that. They're thinking, hey, we're okay losing this game, but this kicker's going to have to hit a 40-yard field goal. And we don't think he's going to be able to do it. We'll actually push him to a side. Like, we're not even going to let him run it up the middle. We're going to push him to a side so he's got to kick it. So that they seem to kind of learn from that. So, Hampton, let's keep moving. I know we want to cover a couple more things. I think what we did well right there is the offense is what deserved most of the conversation. And there was other parts of this football game. We hit it on the special teams. Offense, talk about that. But there's even so much more I feel like we could talk about. But we do need to talk about defense. And, man, Womack has what I think I appreciate about him the most is that he was a head coach. And DeBoer, I think, gave him the pitch of, hey, aren't you kind of exhausted? Kind of like they say, when you
weary and broken within?
It's like how much goes into being a head coach now, where you're a CEO, and how I would simply say it is in most fields, why maybe you got into the job, the higher you get, you usually get further and further away from it. And for him, it might have been, man, he just loves calling defense. And at South Alabama, it's like, man, he got to be so much of the CEO. He actually got away from the players or the schemes, and he had to worry about recruiting. Man, just like kudos to him for coming to Bama. And I think pressing through some questions around his philosophy, his scheme, and I think one, be adaptable and himself being coachable.
Yes.
But, man, I really want to hear you, and I don't know if I've got a ton to say other than they played amazing. There's several guys we could point out.
Yeah.
But I'll give you kind of my time to just talk about this defense, and we can round off this episode.
Yeah. Before I get into that, I do want to say we didn't talk about it. I hated the time management on the final drive of the game. We get the ball back with 7.5 minutes left, and you have no urgency, and try to make that, you reduce your margin for error. I totally disagree with that, and it seemed like Alabama was playing for a field goal. And also, I will give Grubb credit that Alabama did not run as much on first down as they did against LSU, and I do think that helped the offense. So I'll give them credit there. But
submit that for the record.
For the record. Let me submit that. Because like you said, I could literally, this game, there's 3 hours worth of content, if not more, when you fully dive into it. But we don't have that type of time today. Defensively, your point about Kane Womack and his ability to self-scout and self-evaluate and evolve and adapt, I really think the offensive side of the ball could use some of that. Because there were a lot of people questioning Kane. They questioned him last year. They questioned him after Florida State, questioned him after Georgia, specifically when teams broke off a long run or two against this Alabama defense. Well, I always thought that it wasn't as much scheme related. I definitely think there were some situational play calling aspects that could improve, and I've pointed them out here on the show all year. I definitely think, matching personnel and kind of changing what you do as far as sometimes tweaking your personnel to fit whatever the offense is doing, which again, that is matching personnel. But I think they've done a much more effective job of that this year. And what I said this last week, you have seen a group that as individuals across the board have gotten better, they have also collectively played better together. You're not seeing nearly as many misrun fits. You're seeing a team that is a lot more that has a lot more gap integrity. You're seeing a team that is really, really coming on when it comes to pass rush. Yonze Pierre has become an absolute menace off the edge. He's been great. Been really impressed with him, and we've sung his praises for the past 4 or 5 weeks. I think all your linebackers are playing really, really, really high caliber football. Dijon Lee has been a revelation at cornerback. Again, talking about having to account for performance, they benched Damani Jackson because Damani wasn't good enough, and Dijon has taken that opportunity and risen to the occasion. I think he has been absolutely outstanding. Another guy who has done that, Red Morgan. Red Morgan was a menace yesterday, blowing up screens, being very, very physical in the run game, coming downhill, striking blockers, pushing up field, setting the edge hard where they have to turn back inside where the help is. I just think there's so many facets of this defense that are just working in unison now. Guys on the defensive line I thought played well. I thought Edric Hill played a really good game. Lennon Simmons continued to do what he does. Keon Keeley and Noah Carter continue to get more and more pass rush snaps and pass rush opportunities, and they're taking advantage of it. Again, this is a crazy stat, and I wanna make sure that I give mention to this. There's actually 2 of them. Oklahoma's 212 yards of offense is the 4th fewest yards by an FBS team in a win against a top 5 team since 2000. So literally that win was historic yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's another interesting stat that, of course, I didn't bookmark in my tweet, but I believe it is the longest drive that Oklahoma had scoring yesterday was 41 yards.
Yeah.
The other one was 30 to 32. The rest of them, they were all in the red area due to special teams or offensive turnovers. And to consistently hold Oklahoma to field goal after field goal after field goal, and they only gave up the 1 touchdown by themselves, which was the Mateer run. You have to tip your cap to that entire defensive staff. And I know Oklahoma's offense is limited, but they were actually starting to generate a little bit more of an effective ground game with Xavier Robinson. They held him in check. They held Mateer's legs in check for the most part. Had him very uncomfortable because they did a good job of not getting out of their pass rush lanes and kind of keeping him in the pocket, making him read and decipher zone defense, and he wasn't doing a very good job of being accurate and being decisive all the time. The one red mark that I give them, this team has been elite at generating turnovers all year long, and they had 3 opportunities to do just that, and they came up empty, and if just one of them goes another way, the game's different. Nikai Hill-Green missed one. He dropped an interception.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson dropped a pick 6. And Tim Keenan made a heck of a play. Heck of a play. He batted down the ball. If he doesn't bat that down the ball, though, Yonze Pierre has a pick 6 because he dropped in coverage and Mateer threw it right to him. That you just got unlucky there. But overall, you hold a team to 212 yards, you deserve to win the game. And I feel like for the past 3 or 4 weeks now, Alabama's defense has been hung out to dry by the Alabama offense.
Yeah, that's a really stark point. I mean, that's well said because they definitely have. Hampton, let me ask you 2 questions. Yeah. And then do you have anything else that you want to cover? And I hope maybe one of my questions will covered.
Yeah.
But if not, we'll circle back.
Okay.
Man, and let me correct something. I said that Mateer had 0 touchdowns. What I meant, 0 passing touchdowns.
Yeah,
He did score the rushing touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you a question. This is a clarification for me, and you don't know what the coaches are, but just walk me through this.
Yeah.
On that touchdown, it feels like we have competing ideas of what we want to do in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
I hear at practice all they yell is make them snap it again.
Yes.
Make them snap it again. Make them snap it again. Stop them. Just make them snap it again. Like, we just believe if we continue, first we're going to eat clock, and we just, at the end of the day, we kind of want the ball at the end of the game. We'll go win. We'll go score. To talk about that at the end, I just would tell Grubb, I just don't think we're there yet as a football team. Like, the philosophy might be correct. Like, it's the right answer on paper that you've got the ball with 7 minutes. Like Mahomes used to go down. It's like, man, if you gave him any time, it could be 7 minutes or 30 seconds, he wins the game. We're just not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I would answer that. But here's what I want to ask you is, on that Mateer touchdown, we've got the defensive philosophy, make them snap it again. And then all you see on that run is them trying to punch the ball out. And I felt like they gave him about 5 more yards as he's dragging guys into the end zone. So I know that's get turnovers. Just walk me through what are we asking what would you ask our guys to do maybe in that specific moment? Because it does seem to happen kind of in the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like we're getting a little, I would say we're getting confused because I can't figure out which one we're trying to do, make them snap it again or trying to force a turnover. So what do you just kind of what would you wanted to see our guys do in that situation?
It's an interesting thought for sure. I would say you have to make sure that you get the ball carrier on the ground, regardless. Mm-hmm. But while doing so, you can still try to get the ball out. I look at Justin Jefferson against Vanderbilt. Teach tape.
Yeah.
He gets Diego Pavia to the ground, and as he's going to the ground, he rips at the ball.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that is what Kane Womack and the staff put on film and say, this is what we need to do. You need to secure the ball carrier first, and then you try to get the ball out. I that's what I believe need to happen in that situation. And to me, what looked like happened is somebody, I want to say it was Zabian from one side, kind of arm tackled him, and they tried to punch, and then he spun around, and when he spun around, it almost, I think whoever was initially tackling him kind of whipped or ran into, I believe it was Deshaun Lee, and kind of threw him off. And so it wasn't very sound tackling on that particular play. Now, I thought for the majority of the game, they tackled very well.
Yeah.
So on that particular play, they did not.
Mm-hmm. It just seems like there's certain moments where, and again, I might be missing, maybe there's a call where it's like, hey, you know, when quarterback's running and we're within 5 yards, let's try to get the ball out. Like, I was just curious. I saw that and it felt like just the shift happened and they all kind of went for it. Like you said, it might have just been they were spinning off.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question. I think it's a good way to end the pod. If not, we can make sure we cover if there's anything else you want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want Alabama's next few games to go like? Obviously, we're playing Northern Illinois. That's a win. Play Auburn. You got to win that game. Find yourself in Atlanta playing A&M. Is that it's got to go that way? Let's pull out. Let me just say what.
It's the most likely scenario.
Yes, it says that the only way that Alabama doesn't make it to the SEC championship with a win against Auburn. All these have to happen. Florida has to beat Tennessee. Kentucky has to beat Vanderbilt. Arkansas has to beat Missouri. Ole Miss has to beat Mississippi State, and Texas A&M has to beat Texas. That would be the only way that Georgia could then jump. Okay. So, Hampton, let's say we get to Atlanta. Like, play me both ways. If we win that game or don't win that game, how does this kind of shake out? Because that's what all of YouTube is being filled with right now is this bunch of what ifs. But let's just do it for Alabama. You win. You get to Atlanta. Like, what happens if you have 2 losses? What happens if you lose the SEC championship and have 3 losses?
I think it's like you said, a perfect way to end the pod. Because I do want to say this overarching statement. I'm speaking to myself, we have to retrain our brain on what constitutes a good regular season. Mm-hmm. It used to be, if you lost one game, Shoot, if you lost 2 games, your season was over. Look, very disappointing loss by Alabama, but it's not like you lost to a bad team. Oklahoma has a very legit shot. If they win out, they're going to get in the playoff. They will be in the playoff. That is a good football team. Ohio State last year, they lost 2 football games in the regular season, and then 2 or 3 weeks in between the Michigan game and when they played Tennessee, and until the end, they were the best team in America. That can still happen for Alabama. Everything is still in front of this team. No doubt about it. And Ohio State had their flaws at that point in the year too. So hope is not lost. The season is not over. And everybody's saying, I'm out on this staff or I'm out on this team. Everybody take a deep breath. It'll be fine. This one loss, this one bad day at the office doesn't take away or negate what they have done to this point. I am very concerned about the Auburn game because it is in Auburn, and you and I have grown up in this state, and we know how it goes over there. We know the house of horrors that it can be for Alabama. But if they win those 2 and they get to the SEC championship game, I think they're in regardless. I don't think you penalize a team for playing an extra game that they earned a right to be in while the rest of the SEC sits at home and they don't have to worry about that. They didn't hurt SMU last year for losing the Clemson game.
I was about to say, precedent's been set.
Yeah. And to me, I know a lot of Alabama fans were mad about that. I understood it. I mean, because SMU would have been in if they hadn't played in the ACC championship, so they shouldn't be automatically kicked out because they lost. And I think whoever plays in the SEC championship, regardless of who wins or loses, you're just playing for seeding at that point.
Yeah, which I mean, not to go there, just for a second. Yeah. For A&M, it's like, I mean, I don't know if seeding. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. But man, that just feels like a lot to put on the field to just kind of in basketball. You're like, oh, this is a tournament sport, you know, like you just get put in. So keep going, but just it feels like that would be a huge moment for Alabama, huge game for them to play for. Not that A&M doesn't show up, but they don't really have much to. They've got a little bit to lose, but they're in. It's like, hey, let's just not get hurt. So keep going. I don't want to distract us from the point.
Yeah, no, and I do agree with that to an extent. Like losing or winning the SEC championship does not mean what it used to.
Yeah,
that used to be. If you won that was as good as winning the national championship because a lot of the time, take 2012 Alabama Georgia, whoever won that game was winning the national championship and beating that Notre Dame team. Yeah. No offense, Kyle Edwards, love you, buddy, but everybody knew that. Everybody knew that. So the 2 teams, whoever competes in that, obviously they're going to want to win. They're competitors. It's a trophy and a ring that you earn.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a testament to the work you put in throughout the year. But if I'm an Alabama fan, I'm almost kind of like, I take the bye week. I take the extra week of getting everybody healthy and then game planning for whoever you're going to face in the playoff. Because like I said, you're going to be playing for seeding at that point. And if you don't go, you can rest up and you might be hosting a home playoff game against a group of 5 team. And I think you'd rather do that than play A&M team, potentially lose a pivotal player in the process. But for Alabama to win a national championship, and I think that's ultimately what it comes down to, some of these fatal flaws that have been persistent throughout the year, you're going to have to find some schematic answers for them, and you're going to have your quarterback play to the level that he was playing at during the middle of the year. Because, look, I love Ty Simpson. Everybody knows that. He's been a great quarterback throughout the year. His level of play, and again, I've explained part of the reason why. A lot of it's him. A lot of it's the guys around him. But he's got to be better for Alabama to hoist a trophy at the end of the year because he is the catalyst for this team and will ultimately be be the reason why they either win or lose a championship.
I agree with you. And I want to just like tag this on, we can end right here, like you said, this is the line that stuck out is we've got to kind of reframe what your record
Yes.
shows now that the playoff is wider. What I want to walk away with, this is me being a little bit optimistic, but also just being realist. Like there's just a part of the conversation we're not used to that does exist. Alabama beat, like, yeah, they've got 2 losses. They've got one that's really hard. I mean, you can't get past Florida State. That's what a wake up call. A lot of our players were saying, "Man, that made us who we are." All this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
All you got to do is get in. This reminds me a lot of the playoff picture for baseball. In years past, it was, man, the wild card team got hot at the right time.
Yes.
And they didn't have to wait to play. Like they were hot and they got to continue to play. And that's how I'd frame it. If I'm Kalen DeBoer, that's how I have to frame it.
Mm-hmm.
This team has showed that it can play Georgia, win. Vanderbilt, number 16 in the nation, win. Missouri away, win. Tennessee, South Carolina, LSU. Like, man, if there's a team in the nation that shows that they can put 4 wins together, 5 wins together, whatever you want to kind of, however this kind of works out, Alabama has been proven to show that it can put those together.
Yes.
The question is, like I said, there's some holes, but man, I do believe one thing we do have going for us is we've played a really hard schedule, and they have game prepped and put guys on the field to go make this happen. And I don't know if some of these other teams have just had to mentally get ready to go play a top 25 team, a top 15 team each and every week like Alabama has done this year. So, Hampton, that's what I've got. Thanks for letting me jump back on with you. But I want to ask, is there anything else that you want to – again, this game was so wide, but it's because it encompassed a lot of the talking points that we've been pointing to all season. And in some ways it was like, there's what I'm talking about. There's what I'm talking about. So I'm sure that most of our listeners have heard that, but you get the last word. Get us out of here. And thanks for letting me jump on. And listeners, I hope that you've made it this far listening to us. So, Hampton, get us out of here.
It was 100% a culmination of everything that we had said during the stretch run, rearing its ugly head. But the point that you made about Alabama being able to go and sustain a run like is going to be what is going to be required of them to win a national championship. They are one of the few teams equipped to do so. They are battle tested. And for the majority of the year, they have been good in the critical moments. And while that has been excellent, and while that has won them a ton of ball games, for them to win the national championship, and we've said this week after week, you have to develop the killer instinct. When you have an opportunity to put a team away like you did yesterday, it was 21-20 for the longest time, and you could never quite get there. You have to learn to do that, or we're going to be here, hopefully, in late January, having a similar conversation because you haven't rectified that singular issue. Yes, this game was disappointing. But again, like we said after Florida State, how does this team respond? I believe their response after Florida State has shown that you can trust them and that they're going to be ready and equipped for the challenge. And guess who else was equipped for the challenge today? That would be you, Mr. Chase Haney. It has been, dude, it's been awesome. I've had a great time talking with you about this game and breaking it all down. And we have missed you this year very much. But again, you're a new dad, and we're so happy and proud for you and Lindsay with that. And just, you have a seat on the Pigskin Cafe anytime that you were able to join us. And we appreciate you hopping on today. And before we get out of here, everybody, if you made it this far, which we hope you do, or hope you did, you had to at least stick around for the Ryan Williams rant, if anything. I mean, that was worth the price of admission alone.
That's right.
But if you stayed around this long, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, leave us a like, leave us a comment, hit that notification bell, and follow us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. We will be back next week to break down the rousing game that will be Alabama versus Eastern Illinois, along with some other high-profile matchups from across the country. But the Pigskin Cafe is going to be closed for now. But until next week, chew on that.